data, but okay, good. Yeah, the recording briefly stopped, but now we're back on. The always on job coach is addressing people like Will who do a job with a coach. But coaches are amazing, and that personal relationship between the employee and coach helps helps move mountains and helps change the world. But coaches are not available 24/7. Coaches can't be infinitely patient. Coaches usually have 5 to 10 people who they're coaching at once. And so this little app that I've built um, helps with those realities and helps people with IDD do their best work, especially when they can't get the coach's attention right now, and still maintains that relationship with a coach for the long term. So um, check it out if you would like. And if you think you're a builder, whether it's software or any other thing, um, think about PowerShift. Think about how does this thing that I'm building create or not create the kind of world that I want to live in the future? And that is leadership. All right, the reading list, and I realize I'm a couple minutes over, but we'll still have some time for Q&A. Um, these books have been influential to me. They are mostly writings by disabled people about the experience of being disabled in society. The top four are about disability. The last two are not about disability, but they are the books that have most influenced my thinking about artificial intelligence and the approach of being a doer and going and using it right now to create something great. Um, and here's where to find me if you want to connect. I am on LinkedIn. And if you connect with me or anybody on LinkedIn, put a little note in there that says where where we found each other. And there again is the company website if you want to learn more or if you're interested in trying the plain language interpreter. Um, okay, that's it. I think we've still got 7-ish minutes for questions. Um, and Natalie, it looks like the chat closed, but did you have questions that came through that reflect what the group was mostly wanting to know?
Yeah, so I just opened the chat back up. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric, for this presentation. And if you have any questions, audience, if you have any questions, please put that in the chat and I will choose a few for Mr. Eric to answer. All right, okay. First question is, what is your motive for starting IDD? And did you have anyone specifically who you wanted to help?
Yeah, so I'm at a point in my career where I have the ability to go think about what change I really want to make in the world. Yeah, and I think AI and its emergence makes a lot of things possible, and especially a lot of things more possible than was true just a couple of years. So when I think about the specific people who I think have a lot to offer to the world. Of course, I think about Will and his job coach and the way that he's succeeded at Microsoft. And I think about the millions of other people like Will out in the world who have not yet gotten connected to that kind of program and the way to make that scale. I think about Jose, the quarterback. I don't know what he does for work, right? But when I think about mapping the way that we were able to include him on the playing field to employment, to healthcare, um, maybe to housing. Yeah, I think about what tools we could build for it, and of course I always think about Colin, my son. So those are just some of the inspirations.
Awesome. Our next question from the chat is, what pieces of advice do you have for people who want to start a startup?
Ah, um, well, it's my first one, and I'm middle aged, so I don't know yet that I have fantastic advice, but actually, I do have a few things. First, the long-term value of uh, any product that is in software for sure, but I believe any product is in the people who use it every day and whether they get value out of it. So I think you can get lost in the weeds thinking a lot about how am I going to make a whole bunch of money, um, and jumping past who is this really for and why would they love it and why does it matter for them. So I'd say first think about the customer, know the customer. Right? You are probably not your own customer, but you know, get to a point where you can imagine sitting over that person's shoulder every day and get really clear about what makes a difference for them, and then you've got a good start. But piece of advice number two is just try to go start building something to prototype. If you're, especially if you're in software, it's a lot easier nowadays, right? Even if you're not an expert in a particular language or technology, you can use AI products like Replit, like Claude Code, like Cursor. They're not very expensive. Some of them are even free. And just try to throw something together and then get feedback. That's a key step, right? Then put it in front of some of those people who you think are your customers and see how well it works for them and just keep going. Right? It won't be perfect, but there'll be a thing you can fix, and then a thing after that, and a thing after that, and eventually, um, magic will start to happen. So yeah, just a couple of points. There's a lot else that's been written about starting startups. That's great. That's out there. I didn't really include that in my reading list, but it's been very exciting.
Thank you so much. All right, we will have three people who have raised their hands ask a question. If we could keep each question and response to under a minute, that'd be great. So let's start with Tanusha. You may unmute.
Natalie, I apologize, but participants aren't allowed to unmute at this moment. So would you mind having them put their question in the chat?
Tanusha, if you could private message me or just put it in the chat, I will look for your message. All right, she says, how can young people like us make an impact in the community with the help of AI?
Yeah, uh, first figure out what kind of impact you want to make, right? And it's I would not start from the technology. Figure out from the people that you know, the systems that you're aware of, and the change that you want to make in the world. Right? What would great look like? Um, and the way that works for me is sketch it, get feedback, go test that out with some people who would most appreciate that change and see how you're doing, and then just keep going, keep iterating towards that. And yeah, AI is a great tool for throwing together something quick that used to take a lot of time. And it won't be perfect, and that's important to be aware of. But if you're thinking about starting something new, getting something pretty close and imperfect that you can then refine is really a key.
Awesome. So, Ranjali, if you could put your question in the chat and I'll have Mr. Eric answer that one. And Carisha, you as well. If you could put your question in the chat, I'll also have him answer that one. Okay. Okay, I see Swanjali. Sorry about that. What is one misconception about disabilities that young leaders unknowingly reinforce? And how can we actively unlearn it? Great question.
Oh, great question. I love that one. Thank you. And honestly, I'm not going to pin this on young leaders. So I'm just going to take the word young out of your questions so that I can answer it better because I have a lot more experience with old leaders. And I would encourage all of you as young leaders to go do better. Um, I think the main misconception is that that the people with disabilities are um, you know is not seeing the full dimensionality of somebody with disabilities. It's exactly that example of how could you bring somebody in here who would get stuck in an elevator, right? They can't possibly contribute to a world-class software team. Well, yeah, Will at that point was getting stuck in elevators, and that absolutely did not mean that he wasn't capable of doing work that was really important to our team. I think that's the main misconception is we'll see an impairment, we'll see a mismatch in one area and think, oh, yeah, this person's really gonna have trouble in other areas, right? And if we're a little more open to thinking of the person in full and a little bit more flexible about what great work looks like, I think we lead a lot more inclusively and effectively.
Awesome. I have a really great question from Christiana. So we will actually do two more questions and just cut the next portion a little short. So Christiana's question is, how was the process leaving a reliable or successful company to start your own startup, and what keeps you motivated?
Mm, yeah. Um, so a lot of people do this better than I do, and especially earlier in career, it might be much more financially necessary to overlap, right? Just because you got a day job doesn't mean you can't be cooking up something at night. Um, and that is a pretty common pattern that uh, people are working at an established, successful company, learning a lot, being part of a team, and then, with care and attention to making sure that you are doing it on your own machine and on your own time and otherwise not violating your employment contract, also working on your own ideas, right? And it's best if those ideas really don't compete with what you're working on at your established company. But then at some point, um, you know, you take that leap, but you don't do it from square one. Now, what I did was square one, right? I you know, ran to the end of the natural opportunity at Microsoft, and I actually did another couple of things in between, exploring different pieces of work that I thought were meaningful, but that were not focused on disabilities. And then decided, hey, I've kind of had these two things that are important to me professionally. There's the disability stuff, which has been mostly volunteer, and there's the software stuff, and it's time to bring them together. And I was able to do that because I was further along in career and I was able to afford it. But I would say start with overlap and think of it as a both and.
Great. And one last question. We are so sorry to everyone who wasn't able to get their question answered, but we will have many more opportunities to ask questions to our other speakers later. So I'm going to go with Carisha's question. She asks, how could you suggest going through negative thoughts on people with disabilities who are seen as a liability?
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. First of all, to acknowledge, right? And I think what your question probably means is negative thoughts among their coworkers, right? So um, that that's called ableism, right? Just like racism is bias about race and sexism is about gender. Ableism is the word for negative thoughts about people with disabilities that are not actually based on um, the relevant things about how they're doing their job. Um, yeah, I think first of all to acknowledge, right? It might seem like this is not what we're used to, right? And yet here's a thing that just happened that gives me confidence that this is going to work. Right. And so balancing it out, refocusing on capability, refocusing on connection, um, and acknowledging that just things that are different are not things that are absolutely going to get in our way, but we're all wired to be more comfortable when things are more like what we're used to.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Mr. Eric. I think a lot of people in the audience really, really enjoyed your talk today. So thank you so much. It was incredibly insightful. All right. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Eric. If you could stop sharing screen, that'd be great. Now we are going to move into a Kahoot activity. All right, let's see. I'm going to share my screen with the game pin. So make your way to kahoot.it on your browser or open the Kahoot app on your phone if you have it. Once you are logged on, hang tight and we will get started before we move on to our next speaker. Awesome. And for this activity, I have a limit of 50 people. So the first 50 people to join will get to play. And if you aren't one of the first 50 people, that is also okay. You can play along at home without being in the game. All right. Awesome. Okay, so everyone, if you could go to kahoot.it, as it says up here on the board, and type in this game pin, you'll be able to join. Whoa. All right. We have already reached our max, which is incredible. That is amazing. All right, we'll get started. All right, so this Kahoot is about famous landmarks. We chose this one because we have an international audience today. The first question is a multi-select question. The Colosseum is the largest amphitheater ever built. What was it used for? Was it red, gladiatorial battles, blue, plays, yellow, executions, or green? None of these. Remember that it's a multi-select, so you can select multiple answers. Awesome. Okay. Great job. Okay. Next question. The Big Ben was completed in 1859. What is the official name of the tower? Is it red, Victoria Tower, blue, the Clock Tower, yellow, the Elizabeth Tower, or green, the Westminster Tower? Awesome. Okay, six people got this one right. It's the Elizabeth Tower. All right. Next question is a true or false. The Great Wall of China can be seen from the moon. Summit is false. Okay, next question. The Parthenon lies above the city of Athens. It's a temple dedicated to which god? Is it red Poseidon, blue Zeus, yellow Athena, there's a typo there, or green Ares? Awesome, it is Athena. I am also getting a lot of questions on if this session will be recorded, and it will be recorded and sent out tomorrow by email. Okay, moving on. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the largest of the Egyptian pyramids. When was it built? Was it red 4000 BC, blue 2500 BC, yellow 1000 BC, or green 500 BC? Awesome. It was 2500 BC. All right. Next question. Ooh, it's double points. So make sure you pay special attention to this one. Hagia Sophia is located in Istanbul. When was it built? Awesome. It is 537 AD. All right. This one, you have to type your answer. The Burj Khalifa is the tallest building in the world. Where is it located? Three more seconds. All right. Dubai. And the correct answer is Dubai. Great job to the 45 people who got that one right. Okay. True or false? Angkor Wat is the largest religious monument in the world. Is that true or false? It is true. Wow. All right. Here's our leaderboard, and we have three more questions. This one is also double points. All right. The Taj Mahal was completed in 1653. What was its purpose? Was it red, summer palace for the emperor, blue, a monument for a great victory, yellow, a place of worship, or green, a tomb for the emperor's wife? All right, and it is tomb for the emperor's wife. Okay. All right. Oh, this one's a puzzle. Okay. Machu Picchu is located in Peru. What civilization built it? All right, so this one, I think you put it in the order of the correct letters. See if that's correct. Try your best. 5 more seconds, by the way. All right, it's the Inca civilization. All right, I believe we have one more question. This one is a quiz, which is double points. So this one is worth a lot. This is the Temple of Kukulkan, which is part of Chichen Itza. Who was Kukulkan? And I apologize if I mispronounced any of those words. All right, and he was a god. All right, let's take a look at the leaderboard at the podium. In third place, we have Dr. Hare. Is that right? Yeah. In second place, we have Awesome Beetle. And in first place, Daring Kangaroo. All right, good job to everyone who played. I again apologize if you were unable to get into the Zoom or into the Kahoot. And now, let's take a look. Second. All right, and now I will pass it on to Matthew Lee, who is going to introduce our next speaker.
Is Matthew able to unmute? That might be.
Hi, okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Hi everyone. My name is Matt Lee, and I'm a second year YAC member from Sonoma County, California. I'll be introducing our second speaker, John England. John England is an award-winning teacher and former public school principal who now works to expand education options and choices for students and families. He works at the Libertas Institute, where he helps advance policies that empower parents, support innovative learning models, and give young people more freedom in how they learn. John is currently building a high school focused on student-led learning, leadership, and entrepreneurship, where students spend more time pursuing their interests, following their curiosity, and engaging in learning that feels meaningful and connected to how the real world works. He's the father of five, four girls and one boy in that order, which helps him stay closely connected to the everyday experiences of teens and kids. He has been married to his amazing wife for over 21 years. Please join me in welcoming John England.
All right. Well, thank you. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties there. I couldn't unmute. I really appreciate that introduction, Matthew. I really do. I'm excited to be here with you guys today. I'm going to go ahead if I can share my screen. Um, maybe I am having technical difficulties as well. All right. So it's wanting me to exit Zoom and come back in. So I'm not going to do that. I apologize for that. I should have tried that beforehand. I have not given Zoom the ability to give me permission to do that. But I am really excited.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you try
Yes.
again? I just made you a co-host. That might make it so you can share your screen.
Let me try that. Yep, there we go. I can now share my screen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And let me go ahead and start this. Yes, I'm excited, very excited to be here with you guys today. As Matthew said, I am a former public school teacher and principal. I've worked in education for 14 years. I was 7 years as an elementary teacher and then 7 years as a principal. And I am currently a policy advocate working for the Libertas Institute. But the thing that brings me the most joy is my family. I'm a husband of 21 years and a father of five. And as Matthew said, I love being a part of what young people are doing. So today, I spoke with Natalie, who kind of arranged this for me, and I get to share kind of how laws and rules get made in our country and how you can influence them. And so this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that's really important. We get to spend a lot of time kind of talking about how we go about influencing the people around us. And I've worked on policies. I work in the state of Utah, and so I'm really familiar with the how laws get made in Utah, and it's really similar in other states. One of the things that I kind of want to talk about is there's a variety of laws and rules that influence your life. They tell you what you can and can't do. It can start as simple as the school level with different school policies and rules that get made by your local school district. It can be in the city where things like speed limits or zoning laws, which allow you to build certain buildings in certain spots, can influence how you interact. Have a picture here of Delicate Arch in the state of Utah, but every state they make laws that impact your life every day. And finally, the federal government. And one of the things I will say that is true for everybody is the items that are on the left you have far more influence over because fewer people are interested in them than the ones on the right. When we talk about the federal government and the laws that get made there, everybody in the country seems to be interested in that. So you're competing for millions of people, whereas at a school district or even a city level, you're maybe only dealing with maybe a few thousand people, and not everybody's going to be interested in the same things. And so, paying attention to the things that are of interest to you will be highly impactful as you begin to kind of work through and think about how you can get involved in this process. And a lot of young people maybe think that this process can be scary. And when you very first start doing it, it can be a little intimidating. You think that these people have all this power and all this control over your lives, and maybe you're a little bit intimidated to go and talk to it. But one of the things I will tell you is that lawmakers love it when young people get involved in the process. They will always be willing to uh, listen to you. In fact, I've seen in the state of Utah, there's certain rules when you go up and you talk to a legislator, and they're willing to waive those rules for young people because they want them to be involved. They want you to be interested. So just for everybody's sake, because I've found that not everybody understands this, but there's an official process for how a bill becomes a law. So I have this graphic here. This is from Schoolhouse Rock. I'm maybe dating myself a little bit, but when I watch Saturday morning cartoons, Schoolhouse Rock would put out these educational videos that I would watch, and they're like 2 or 3 minutes long. And this one's talking about how a bill becomes a law. So all a bill is an idea. It's an idea that comes from somebody. It can come from a lawmaker. It can come from an interested party giving that idea to the lawmaker. And so the lawmaker will be like, oh, that's a really good idea. We should work on that. And so what he will do, or she will do, is they will take that idea, and there's a set of lawyers in Utah and in most places where they will write out the idea and find where in the current laws it would go. And they'll write that all out, and then you'll have what we call a bill. Now, whether it's in the federal government or state governments, you have two bodies that can create bills. One is the House of Representatives, one is the Senate. And the House of Representatives, if they make a bill, it's called a House bill. If it's from the Senate, they call it a Senate bill. Super easy. And they'll take this bill, it will get introduced to the House, and then it will get assigned to what we call committees. And a committee is just a smaller group of legislators whose job it is to really dig into the bill and decide if it's a good law. Maybe there's some little tweaks that need to happen, and maybe they decide they just don't want to deal with it and they'll vote it down. Maybe they love it and they'll just keep it going however they want to. And so let's say this idea comes, and let's say there's a legislator, we'll come up with something funny, like a legislator thinks that, everybody should have to put their left sock on first because they'll find that maybe it makes everybody more efficient, and they just want to really do that. And let's say they take it to their committee. The committee thinks it's a good idea and they pass it. Well, then after it passes the committee, it will then come before the entire body. And again, we're in the House, so it'll come before the entire body of the House. In Utah, that's 75 people. In the national federal government, that's 435 people who have to look at this bill and decide, is this a good idea? And let's say, again, we're in Utah, all the Utah people think that putting the left sock on first is a great idea. They pass it. It will then go to the Senate. And the Senate will do that same process. They'll assign it to a committee, and they will go through it. Let's say the Senate committee decide it was a good idea, but then it comes before the body of the Senate, and enough senators are like, this is weird, we shouldn't do that, and so they vote it down. The bill dies. It's done, okay? But for a bill to become a law, what has to happen is the exact same language has to be passed in both the House and the Senate. And if that happens, that bill then goes to, if you're in a state, a governor. If you're in the federal government, it goes to the president, right? And they have the power to veto a bill. What that means is they can sign it and say, like, we don't like this idea, or they can sign it into law if they like it. They actually have a third option, which is they do nothing. It still becomes a law, but it's kind of more of a political maneuver saying, like, I don't like this, but I also know I can't stop it, so I'm going to let it become a law without, deciding that to support it or not. And so these are all areas where you, as an individual citizen, can try and influence the process. Let's say that the bill gets vetoed by the governor, in our case. If the legislature wants to, they can actually call themselves back into session, and they can override the governor's veto. When a bill very first goes through, you only need a simple majority, so 51% of the legislators. And so that's all you need. But when you are overriding a governor's veto, you need 2/3 majority, which is a much higher bar to override that. And this is where we get those ideas of checks and balances that comes in with the governmental process. Let me take just a quick drink. So this is the process that every bill and idea goes through. If you're in a city or a school board, it's a similar process, but there's fewer members, and so they only have one body typically. So you have city councilmen or you have school board members who are the ones who are voting on these different policies in cities. They're called ordinances, but they all have the same effect of impacting your life in some way, shape, or form. And so really at the end of the day, my job is lobbying. I'm officially a lobbyist. I am hired to go in and talk to legislators and try and convince them to think the way that I do on the issues that I care about. And so what I do with my time is I will go to, I work in education policy. So in the state of Utah, I go to every education committee and I get to know the education committee members. Because one of the most powerful things that you can have when you're working in politics is a relationship. And so you usually don't want, if you're interested in a certain policy, in a certain law, a certain rule that you think should or should not be in existence, you typically don't want your first interaction with a lawmaker to be you telling people why you're against what they're doing. So developing that relationship to begin with. And you guys lobby as young people, maybe you're lobbying your parents for a later curfew at night, or maybe in class you're lobbying your teacher to change a rule within the classroom. And all you do is you are working together and working to influence somebody. And it's easier to influence somebody you have a good relationship with, right? And so that's what a lobbyist does is we come in, we have conversations, and you don't have to be a paid lobbyist to do that. I know many private citizens, and what the difference between them and me is I'm getting paid to be there and they're going there of their own accord. But many of them have more influence than I do because they just show up and they talk to the legislators. They get to know them. They find out what they're interested in. And all of these interactions are super important when it comes to trying to talk with them. And so that's what I do. Utah's legislative session is actually one of the shortest. It starts tomorrow, so I'm going to be extremely busy beginning tomorrow through the first weekend in March. That's 45 calendar days. And that is one of the shortest in the country, actually, for a different state, various states. And so what I'm doing the rest of the year is my job is I'm a policy advocate. I'm a policy analyst. I analyze different policies and I decide, is this a good idea or is this not? And we're meeting with legislators there. And again, you can do this as well. Anything that you're interested in, you can reach out to your local legislator and say like, hey, I heard about this change that you made, cell phones in schools is one that's impacting your life. You may like it, you may hate it. But either way that you feel about that decision, you should talk to your legislator. Just reach out to them. And I wouldn't do it during legislative session. Starting here in the next a week or so, they're going to be receiving like 1,000 emails a day about various issues. And everybody thinks that just sending an email will be the right way to influence them. And it typically isn't. So I want to share with you a couple stories of individuals who have made changes to laws throughout the country. Here on the left is Aiden. Aiden is definitely younger than you are, but he started a small business in Arizona and wanted to change the laws. He felt like a young person who's making just a little bit of money maybe shouldn't be required to have kind of the same regulations that a large corporation has. And so he came before the Arizona Senate and asked them to pass a bill. Now, the bill was uh, commonly called the lemonade stand law, which basically is like, hey, as kids, we should be able to go out and, open a lemonade stand and not have to worry about things like sales tax and um, work business permits and business licenses because, we're 12, we're 13, we're 14. We're very young. So let us come and make our, $20, $30 without having to worry about all these different expenses so that we can enjoy the fruits of our labor. And so he went and he testified. He got up and he spoke in front of these senators, and he had a prepared statement that he read. And at the end, the senators all applauded him. They all wanted to, um, give him kudos. And they spoke with him afterwards because they love when young people get involved. Next, we have Haley. Haley wanted to update the school dress code at the high school she was attending. So she gathered a whole bunch of high school students and their parents and had a discussion and created a petition that she took to the principal and the school board and was able to change the school dress code to more accurately reflect the styles of the day. And then here we have, this is Jaden, and Jaden was able to change a policy within his school as well. Was he advocated for free speech, and as part of free speech, he had a flag that was sewn on his backpack. His, you may remember this from a couple years ago. It got quite a bit of news and coverage, but it's called the Gadsden flag. You've maybe seen this. It's the one that says, "Don't tread on me," has a snake on it. And, as a historical flag, it was able to, he thought that he should be able to wear this to school. His school thought that he shouldn't be allowed to wear it. He was able to change the school policy by having conversations and kind of standing up for what he wanted to. And then the last one is Malala, and I cannot remember how to pronounce her last name, so I won't try, but she is from Pakistan. And she advocated for girls' education in Pakistan and was able to change and get certificates that, the Pakistani and Taliban government didn't want her to get. So you as a young person have a lot of power and influence if you decide that you want to use it. And I understand that the process can feel intimidating, but you actually have the opportunity to do it. One of the books I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in influencing anybody is this book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You should get involved in the process that is happening all around you because it is impacting your life. So one of the things that I love to say, and one of the reasons I love this book, is this is not like what we usually think about with like internet trolls who like to get on and, keyboard warriors or whatever you want to call them, and just try and trash talk and dunk on the people who disagree with them. So if you think that's the way to influence people, you usually don't have as much influence. One of the things that I love about my position and the group that I work with is some of the policies that we advocate for are, I'm in Utah, so they typically lean towards Republican policies. But we have other policies that we support that lean more towards Democrat policies. And so I love that I can go in there and I can have conversations with legislators who are Republicans and legislators who are Democrats, and I can just get to know them and just talk to them and talk about the work that they're doing and find out why they're doing the thing that they're doing. And when I've done that, they don't always agree with me, but we're able to walk away and be like, okay, hey, it was a debate over the idea, and we weren't trash talking one another. We weren't demeaning one another. and trying to influence or undermine one another. So when you start calling names, there's actually a logical fallacy. It's called an ad hominem attack. And that's just basically you when you take from debating an idea and the merits of an idea and start trying to attack the character of somebody else. And that's what we see on social media all the time is, somebody will put out an idea and without fail, if it's a popular post, you'll get a bunch of people who try to attack the person who put the idea out. And that doesn't actually impact anyone around you. The thing that actually happens is realizing that we're all human beings. We're all coming to the table with our own ideas. And usually the best policy tends to line up between each two opposing forces' ideas. And so that's something that I think I would highly recommend for each of you to consider is this idea of going in and just looking to make friends, just learning, getting to know the people who are influencing, the laws and rules around you. So I really appreciate the time. I think I'm almost at time, but I'm John England. If you're interested in learning more or want to connect with me or talk about ways that you can get involved more, I'm happy to chat with anybody. My email is john@libertas.org, and I am unfortunately easy to find on Twitter. I'm at Principal John, where I chat about my ideas as well. But as I said, take the time. And my challenge to each of you is, I would say sometime in this next week, just reach out to your local either legislator or a city councilman or a or a senator or somebody who's making laws and rules about you, and just ask for 5 minutes to get to know them. That's my challenge to you guys in the next week is send them a message and just say, hey, I just want to understand, your position on certain things. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn the time back over to whoever's moderating, and I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Awesome. We will hand it over to Matt, who will facilitate this Q&A session. Matt, are you there?
Yeah. First, thank you for your time, Mr. England. I personally enjoyed the book, Dale Carnegie's How to Win and Influence People. A couple questions that stand out. I guess one of them is, as a former public school teacher, what do you think about homeschooling? That's the first one that pops out. And like your stats on education in general, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about your specific policy work?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a unicorn. I am a former public school teacher who is homeschooling his kids. So I love homeschooling. There's a lot of really cool and interesting things that are um, coming about in education. So the policy work I work on specifically, as I said, is education. So we work on education choice policies. And then the other thing that I've worked on they're called micro schools. So in my bio, I mentioned that I'm putting together a high school. So micro schools are exactly what they sound like. They're typically started by former public school teachers. And they just decide, what for whatever reason that it would be better for them to start their own school. And so I advocate for micro schools to make it easier for them to open. So those are the two main policies that I work on. But yes, I love homeschooling. I have my 5 kids. 2 are currently homeschooling. I've got one in a micro school, and one is doing what I call a la carte. So she has like a whole bunch of different providers that she's taking classes from. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your answer. The next question that's Oh, I like this one. As a student who's learning about civic systems work, what's one misconception people generally have about the government or the public policies?
Um, I think one of the big misconceptions that they have is that they think that maybe the legislators know about the policy or that they're
Hmm.
the ones coming up with the policy. Honestly, most policies um, are brought to them by interested parties. So that's something that we do in Utah is, when it's not legislative session, we're coming up with ideas that coincide with the principles that we believe in. And we are working with legislators who tend to agree with us to run those policies for us. So they'll be the ones who submit it and get the bill language for us in that way. And so that's I think one of the misconceptions is that a lot, almost all bills, and it doesn't matter if you're in the state or at the federal level, they are being brought to the legislator from somebody else who
Right,
has the idea.
right. So it's not necessarily like, yeah, you can't expect like your local congressman has like pretty expert policy like awareness about like the things that you're talking about. So
Exactly. And that's true too, is like, and they will rely on um
they're constituents, huh?
people they think are experts in the area.
Right.
So in Utah, we the legislature, actually going back to the cell phone bill, they passed the cell phone bill because some high school students brought that idea to the legislator and
Hmm.
said, like, cell phones are a problem. We need to do something. And so
Yeah.
they did something. So it's a really interesting process to be a part of.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have one in California too. And honestly, like people complain about it, but I think it's relatively helpful. Okay. Consider our international audience. Here's a question from our student in India. From your experience, what can students do in countries like India to support or build alternative learning opportunities when formal school choices are limited?
Ooh, that is a really good question. And not being super familiar with, the politics in India, um, I highly recommend. I'm sure you might have to do some research, but I'm sure there's some advocacy groups that are out there that are interested in that, specifically in India. Um, I don't know of them. Like I said, I work mostly in Utah politics, and I've paid a little bit of attention to the federal government, but I'm mostly working in Utah politics. So I'm sorry I don't have more help for you on that one specifically, but it would take a little bit of research. But there's some really cool things that have happened in India, um, as far as research goes, that is really cool. So I mentioned micro schools. There's a book called The Beautiful Tree, and the author actually went to India, went to some of the poorest parts of India, and found small schools that had started. They're private schools, but he found these small schools and they were serving kids and doing a good job. And so there's definitely people out there who are advocating for what you're interested in, but I'm not sure what those groups are called.
Right. And maybe it's up to like the students here to like advocating and like asking questions, maybe sending some emails. Right.
Oh,
So
for
the
sure.
final question, sorry, because we're on a time crunch, is how can the high school students like tangibly present an idea in Parliament or for us to like become a bill, or how can they tangibly make the relationships that you were talking about earlier?
Um, Honestly, like the very first thing, and it doesn't matter where you're at. Um, all politics is it, you would hope that the best idea would be what passes, and really it comes down to relationships. That's the truth of it, is you can build relationships with the the people who are making those laws, and that would be the very best first step, is reaching out to um, the lawmakers in your area and just starting a conversation and letting them know what you're interested in. You may find that they aren't interested in the policies that you're interested in, and so you can reach out to other policymakers there. But that's always the best first step, because they are always interested in talking to the people that they represent.
It's for the people by the people. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your time, Mr. England.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
All right.
Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties there. Thank you so much, John, for sharing. My name is Ariella, and I'm a first year YAC member from Hagerstown, Maryland. Now we're going to have a speaking activity led by YSA, which stands for Youth Service America. Our speaker is John Minks. Mike Minks. Mike Minks is a vice president of operations at Youth Service America, where he plays a key role in advancing the organization's mission to make working together for the common good, the common expectation, and common experience of every young person. He has nearly 25 years of experience in education, youth development, national service, and public policy fields, including over 18 years at Youth Service America. His work at YSA reflects a deep belief in the power of youth voice and collective action to address pressing social changes.
Hello, everybody. Happy MLK Day. I can't think of a better way to celebrate MLK Day than an event like this, pulling together amazing young people from all over the country and all over the world. We're excited to tell you a little bit about YSA's work to found a new era of youth service in America, and to get your input on strategies that you think you would be helpful in engaging more of your peers in service and service learning and civic participation. So let me just pull up some intro slides quickly. So YSA's work has always been focused on making sure that all young people have the opportunities to be connected to and contribute to their communities, and that's looked a lot of different ways over the years. But we really see this moment as we celebrate America's semi-quincentennial, our 250th anniversary of independence this summer, being a key civic and cultural moment where we can really think about what we want the future of our democracy to look like and what participation by everyone in that democracy really looks like. So we are working on this new era of youth service in America strategy that will launch around the 4th of July this summer. And this event is actually one of 50 different events that are happening all across the country this month around MLK Day, to gather input from partners, adult staff, and young and youth leaders. So we're excited to hear your input on this. A couple of quick definitional things just to set some context. When we talk about participation, we really do mean any form of participation in communities. So all forms of volunteering and service, all forms of voting and civic engagement, all forms of joining in leadership. And you can see all of the different types of things that fall under each of those categories. And so hopefully you get the sense that we really do mean any form of participation in strengthening your communities. And we really look at how this plays out in every setting. So in school, after school and youth development programs, and in the community through nonprofits and faith-based organizations. So we really want to support all forms of participation, all forms of service, kind of everywhere that you might be in school, out of school, and in your community. So, and we think this is super important, not only for those kind of long-term impacts and outcomes on young people, on communities, and on our democracy and civic health, but in the shorter term, really building that sense of mattering and belonging and meaning and purpose and hope that we think really comes out of it's kind of the magic of what happens when you're involved in your community and connected to others through service and community participation work. So and we think and we hear from lots of folks that like these are the things that we're all craving, especially right now, kind of given the current state of the world. So we think service and community participation is the way to make this happen. So despite our as I shared, we have this vision that every young person, 100% of young people have these opportunities growing up. And we know that right now, only about 1 in 4 actually participate in these types of opportunities. So you can see some stats here from prevalence surveys that we've done of kind of an estimate of what percentage of young people participate in these different ways. The first one in K-12 schools, and the second one in kind of all the out of school and community-based organizations. And so you can see, a lot of teens percentages, and the highest really being that 37% of community service opportunities through schools. So clearly we have a long way to go in increasing these types of opportunities in all of those settings that I talked about. We really look at we've categorized kind of all of the barriers that we've heard from people about why kind of those 3 and 4 are not participating into these 4 categories. So the first is the lack of ask, or the lack of opportunity, or the lack of expectation that people just don't have the program opportunities to participate in, or they're not kind of personally connected to it by a caring adult or a mentor or a peer leader or someone that they know well, who's helping make that connection for them. The second is really the lack of knowledge or skills kind of necessary to participate. So thinking like, even if you want to and there's an opportunity, that you may just not know how to to do that, especially when we get to encouraging people to be planning their own service or service learning projects, that if you've never done that before, that can be really intimidating the first time versus kind of plugging into an existing volunteer opportunity on a weekend afternoon that you just show up for. The third is really around the lack of equitable resources or even policy or systemic barriers, and usually driven by income level of the family, the community, the school, and just what resources are available to support these programs and support the engagement. And we know there's a lot of equity gaps there for a lot of different reasons. That even if you have the opportunity and want to, and even if how, that there's kind of this lack of resources or some policy that's standing in your way. And then the fourth one is really around the lack of kind of hope and connection, feeling disconnected, disaffected, disillusioned, disenfranchised, and can often result from having experienced the other 3 barriers that are, kind of participating once and it not going well, or not having a good experience, not thinking that your participation will make a difference, and kind of checking out. So there's lots of specific barriers that fall under each of these categories, but we really look at these as the big 4. So that's what we're going to focus a quick breakout on, is diving into some strategies around each of these 4 barriers. So to start, we'd love to have you indicate which of those 4 barriers do you think is kind of the most important to solve, or that you face most often, or that your peers face most often, that you see in your schools or communities, to increasing the opportunities and available and the young people participating in them. And we'll use your responses to assign you to those breakouts. So if is someone from the NYLC team launching the poll or survey question, if you can.